Narcissists, at their core, are profoundly dependent on one thing: your attention. It doesn't matter if that attention is rooted in love, admiration, or even anger and frustration. What they crave is the sense that they matter, that they hold a central position in your psychological and emotional landscape. Without this constant stream of attention, what psychologists call narcissistic supply, their carefully crafted sense of superiority begins to crack. And this is why walking away is the most powerful, the most devastating move you can make against a narcissist. It doesn't just wound their pride, it undermines the very foundation of their psychological structure. To understand why this is so effective, you first need to grasp how a narcissist functions. Unlike a healthy individual who draws their self-worth from an internal sense of value, a narcissist's identity is externally constructed. Their sense of self is fragile, hollow, and entirely dependent on the reflections they receive from others. This is why they engage in manipulation, why they seek to dominate relationships. They must constantly extract validation to maintain their illusion of superiority. Without it, they begin to experience what psychologists call a narcissistic injury, a deep psychological wound that threatens to shatter their self-image. And here's the crucial point: your participation in their game is what keeps this illusion alive. Every time you engage, whether through arguments, explanations, or even the act of defending yourself, you are feeding that system. You're confirming in their mind that they matter, that they have the power to influence your emotional state. And that is precisely what they need to maintain control. But the moment you walk away, you disrupt that cycle. You send a message, not through words, but through action, that they no longer hold that power over you. And this is devastating for them, not because they care about you in any genuine sense, but because they cannot tolerate the idea of losing control. When you leave, you become something they cannot manipulate. You become a reminder that their tactics have failed. And for someone whose entire self-worth is built on the belief that they are superior and untouchable, that is an intolerable reality. What's fascinating is that this withdrawal doesn't just affect them externally, it triggers an internal collapse. You see, a narcissist constructs a false self, a mask of grandiosity, to shield themselves from the profound feelings of inadequacy buried beneath the surface. Your attention sustains this mask. It allows them to maintain the illusion that they are special, superior, and invincible. But when you withdraw your attention, that mask starts to slip. And without the constant reinforcement of your reactions, the hidden feelings of shame, fear, and emptiness begin to surface. This is why walking away isn't just a boundary, it's an existential threat to a narcissist. It leaves them alone with the one thing they spend their lives trying to escape, the truth of who they are. And here's the reality they cannot face. Without someone to control, without someone to reflect back their false image, they are nothing. This is why they react so aggressively when you begin to pull away. They will attempt to reel you back in through guilt, blame, or even sudden kindness. Not because they value you, but because they need you to sustain their fragile self-image. But here is where your power lies. The moment you realize that their control is dependent on your participation, you understand something transformative. They cannot hold you unless you allow it. You are not trapped, you are not helpless, you are in fact the source of their power. And once you choose to walk away, you reclaim that power for yourself. This is not an easy thing to do. Narcissists are masterful at creating psychological hooks, subtle manipulations that make you doubt your perceptions, question your worth, and feel responsible for their emotional state. Walking away requires clarity. It requires the courage to see the situation for what it is, to recognize that their need for control has nothing to do with love and everything to do with their own brokenness. And it requires you to accept a truth that is both liberating and difficult. You cannot save them. You cannot heal them. And you are not responsible for their wounds. When you walk away, you are not just protecting yourself, you are delivering a profound and undeniable message. I am no longer a source of your validation, I am no longer willing to play by your rules, and I refuse to be controlled by your insecurities. This is the one thing they cannot tolerate, and it is the one thing that ultimately breaks their hold over you. And perhaps most importantly, by choosing to walk away, you affirm your own value. You make the decision to invest your energy in people and pursuits that honor your worth rather than wasting it on someone committed to diminishing you. And that is the ultimate act of power, because it declares unequivocally that your life is no longer shaped by their brokenness, but by your own strength and vision. In the end, walking away is not just an act of self-preservation, it is an act of profound defiance. It is the refusal to allow someone else's dysfunction to define your reality. And that, more than anything else, is what breaks a narcissist like nothing else. When you walk away from a narcissist, you do something far more profound than simply ending a relationship or ceasing communication. You force them to confront the one thing they spend their entire existence avoiding, their own emptiness. This is not a minor consequence. It strikes at the core of their psychological structure. A narcissist's entire identity is built upon a fragile and artificial sense of superiority, but beneath that mask lies a profound void, a chasm of insecurity, self-loathing, and shame, and without someone to project onto, to manipulate, and to use as a mirror for their false image, they are left utterly exposed to the reality of their inner world. What's essential to understand is that a narcissist cannot function in isolation. Not psychologically, at least. Their sense of self is not independently sustained the way a healthy individual's is. For most people, identity is anchored in a stable internal sense of worth. It's supported by meaningful relationships, genuine achievement, and the ability to reflect honestly on one's own strengths and weaknesses. But for a narcissist, that foundation does not exist. Instead, their self-emission is entirely externalized. It relies on the feedback they extract from others, the admiration they crave, the control they exert, and the emotional responses they provoke. Without these external reinforcements, their identity begins to unravel. When you engage with a narcissist, whether through affection or conflict, you are unknowingly participating in this dynamic. Your reactions, whether loving or angry, validate their existence. Even negative attention serves their needs because it reassures them that they still occupy your thoughts and hold power over your emotions. This is why they create chaos. It's not accidental. It's a strategy to keep you entangled and, by extension, to keep themselves psychologically afloat. Your presence shields them from the terrifying prospect of looking inward and confronting the hollowness they carry. Walking away disrupts this entire mechanism. It's not just a physical separation. It's a psychological severing. When you withdraw your attention, you deny them the very thing that sustains their false self. And in the silence that follows, the mask they present to the world begins to crack. Without your engagement, they are left alone with their thoughts. And for a narcissist, that is an unbearable position to be in. The absence of external validation forces them to confront the painful truth that no amount of manipulation or control can erase. Without someone to reflect back the image they want to believe about themselves, that image ceases to exist. And this confrontation is deeply unsettling for them. Most people can endure periods of solitude because they possess an internal framework of meaning and self-worth. They can reflect, process, and grow, but a narcissist cannot face themselves in this way. They lack the emotional tools and the psychological maturity to engage in honest self-reflection. Instead, they spend their lives constructing elaborate defenses to avoid the truth, and when those defenses collapse, when you walk away and leave them without the external scaffolding they need, their internal world descends into chaos. It's also why their reactions to being abandoned are often so extreme. The pain they experience isn't merely the loss of a relationship, it's the exposure of their inner emptiness. This is why they react with rage, blame, or sudden pleas for reconciliation. It isn't genuine remorse or love, it's desperation. They are trying in any way possible to reestablish the dynamic that allows them to avoid facing themselves. But here's the critical point. The desperation is not your burden to carry. Their emptiness is not yours to fill. And by staying engaged, you only perpetuate their dysfunction at the expense of your own peace and sanity. There is a profound moral responsibility in recognizing this. Allowing yourself to be used as a psychological crutch does not help them. It enables their dysfunction. And worse, it erodes your sense of self. You cannot heal a narcissist by remaining within their orbit, because their healing, if it is even possible, requires them to confront truths they are unwilling to face. Your departure is not cruelty, it is a necessary boundary that reflects your refusal to be consumed by their brokenness. And in that act of walking away, you also reclaim your own identity. Narcissists excel at distorting reality, at making you question your perceptions, your worth, and your autonomy. By stepping away, you break free from that distortion. You rediscover the clarity to see yourself and the world as they truly are. And more than that, you make a powerful declaration that your value is not dependent on their approval, that your peace is not subject to their chaos, and that your life belongs to you. In the end, when you walk away, you deliver the one consequence a narcissist cannot endure. You leave them alone with themselves. And there is no punishment more profound, no reality more devastating than forcing them to face the truth they have spent a lifetime running from. A critical aspect of breaking a narcissist's hold over you lies in understanding the nature of power, what it is, how it functions, and why withdrawing your presence dismantles their ability to control you. Power, in its essence, is relational. It does not exist in a vacuum. It requires a dynamic between two or more people. For a narcissist, this power is not built on mutual respect or authentic influence. It is rooted in manipulation, emotional dependence, and the distortion of reality. And here's the crucial insight. Their power only exists if you participate in the game. The moment you refuse to engage, the entire structure collapses. What gives a narcissist power over you is not their personality or even their tactics. It's your reaction. Every time you defend yourself against their accusations, every time you try to reason with their twisted logic, and every time you seek to prove your worth to them, you feed their sense of control. They thrive on the emotional energy you expend in response to their provocations. This energy is their lifeblood because it reassures them that they hold a central place in your mind and your life. Without your response, without your willingness to engage, they lose their primary source of psychological fuel. This dynamic is precisely why walking away is so devastating to a narcissist. It strips them of the ability to influence your emotional state, and when they can no longer provoke a reaction, they lose the power to shape your reality. Narcissists operate by keeping you unbalanced, questioning yourself, doubting your perceptions, and living in a constant state of emotional turbulence. It's a psychological sleight of hand. By controlling how you feel, they control how you think. And by controlling how you think, they maintain the illusion that they are indispensable. But when you walk away, you disrupt this illusion. You reassert your autonomy in the most profound way possible. You refuse to let them dictate your emotional landscape. And what's remarkable about this is how quickly their influence begins to disintegrate once you detach. Without your emotional investment, their words lose their sting, their opinions cease to matter, and the narratives they weave to control you about your worth, your competence, your identity, lose their power to define you. This is a difficult truth for many people to accept because it places the responsibility for breaking free squarely in their own hands. It's easier to believe that a narcissist has some inherent mystical power that only they can undo. But the reality is that their power is an illusion sustained by your participation. And when you withdraw that participation, when you refuse to be a character in their drama, their ability to control you evaporates. Walking away is not just about physical distance, it's about emotional detachment. You can leave a narcissist's physical presence and still be psychologically entangled with them if you continue to ruminate on their words or seek validation from them in your mind. True freedom requires more than cutting contact. It requires reclaiming your sense of self. And this reclamation begins when you recognize that their opinion of you is not reality. It is a projection of their own brokenness. Their inability to see your worth does not diminish your worth. And their rejection is not a verdict on your value. It is a reflection of their incapacity to love anyone authentically. When you grasp this, you realize something profound. You do not need their approval to be whole. You do not need their validation to know who you are. And the moment you internalize this truth, their ability to control you disintegrates. Because here's the core reality. A narcissist cannot control someone who no longer seeks anything from them. The power dynamic only works if you are invested in their perception of you. When you cease to care about their approval, you become untouchable, and there is an immense freedom in this realization. You are no longer trapped in the endless loop of trying to explain yourself, trying to be understood, or trying to make them see your value. You stop reacting, you stop explaining, you stop caring about their twisted narratives, and in that stillness, in that refusal to engage, you reclaim your dignity. This is why walking away is the ultimate power move. It's not about revenge or proving a point. It's about taking back control of your life. It's about refusing to let anyone else dictate your sense of worth. And when you do this, you send a clear, unyielding message, not just to the narcissist, but to yourself. I am no longer available to be manipulated. My life belongs to me. In the end, the most powerful response to a narcissist is not confrontation. It is indifference. Because nothing breaks their hold over you faster than realizing you no longer need them, and you never did. One of the most devastating realizations for a narcissist is that they are not indispensable. Their entire self-emission is built around the belief that they are special, unique in their ability to control, to influence, to dominate. They see themselves as the central figure in the lives of those around them, and this belief is not simply a matter of ego, it is a psychological necessity. Without the illusion of being essential, their fragile sense of self begins to unravel, and this is precisely why walking away shatters them at their core. It confronts them with a truth they cannot bear. They are replaceable. When you choose to walk away, you disrupt the narcissist's carefully constructed narrative. They rely on the assumption that you need them, that without their presence you will be lost, confused, perhaps even broken. This assumption is not simply arrogance. It is their defense against a profound internal emptiness. A narcissist cannot afford to acknowledge that you are capable of thriving without them, because to do so forces them to confront their greatest fear, that they do not matter as much as they believe. The act of walking away is so powerful because it removes the narcissist's central position in your life. You are no longer available to be their emotional supply, to prop up their ego, to absorb their insecurities, or to validate their superiority. And the absence of that supply is something they find deeply destabilizing. And this isn't just about the loss of control. It's about the loss of identity. A narcissist's identity is not rooted in who they are as an individual. It is shaped by how much power they hold over others. When you leave, you take that power with you, and without it, they are left with the hollow shell of their own unresolved wounds. It is crucial to understand that a narcissist's sense of importance is always externally derived. They cannot sustain a stable self-concept from within because their internal world is chaotic, filled with shame, self-doubt, and a constant fear of worthlessness. This is why they rely on external validation to maintain their facade of superiority. And when you remove yourself from that equation, you force them to face an uncomfortable reality. They are not as vital as they need to believe. But here is the paradox. The harder they try to convince you that you cannot live without them, the more deeply they reveal their own dependence on you. Their insistence that you need them is not a reflection of your weakness. It is a mirror of their own. They cannot tolerate the thought of being irrelevant because without that sense of importance, their carefully maintained identity crumbles. Walking away is not just an act of self-liberation, it is an act of truth-telling. It strips away the illusion and exposes the reality. No one, not even the most manipulative narcissist, holds the power to define your worth. You were whole before they entered your life, and you remain whole after they leave it. This truth is what makes your departure so threatening. It denies them the ability to craft your reality. It says in no uncertain terms, I do not need you to be complete. And the most profound aspect of this is that it is not rooted in aggression or retaliation. You do not have to fight or argue or prove them wrong. Your absence says everything. By refusing to engage, by choosing to walk away, you communicate the one truth a narcissist cannot tolerate. You are not essential to my existence. And that truth, delivered not through words but through action, is what breaks them. What makes this particularly devastating is that it is irreversible. Once you recognize that you do not need their approval, their presence, or their validation, you cannot unsee it. The spell is broken. Their ability to manipulate you relies entirely on your belief that they offer something you cannot find elsewhere. But the moment you realize that you hold the power to define your own worth, their grip on you dissolves. And there is something profoundly liberating in this realization. You come to see that their attempts to control you were never about your value. They were about their fear. Their desperate need to be irreplaceable reveals how deeply they fear being forgotten. But that is not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for soothing their insecurities or maintaining their illusion of superiority. Your responsibility is to yourself, to protect your dignity, your peace, and your autonomy. When you walk away, you reclaim all the energy you once gave to maintaining their fragile ego. You redirect that energy toward building a life grounded in truth and self-respect. And this shift is transformative not only for you, but for the entire power dynamic. Because once you no longer need them, they lose the ability to define you. And that loss is something no narcissist can ever truly recover from. In the end, the greatest act of power is not confrontation, it is detachment. By walking away, you do more than escape their influence. You dismantle the illusion that they were ever essential in the first place. And that, more than anything else, is what breaks them. One of the most profound ways that walking away breaks a narcissist is through the withdrawal of your attention. It may sound simple, but attention is the very currency that sustains their fragile sense of self. Narcissists are not self-sufficient. Their identity depends almost entirely on how others perceive and respond to them. Your focus, your reactions, even your pain feed their need to feel powerful and significant. When you remove that attention, you disrupt the very mechanism that sustains their inflated sense of importance. Without it, they are left to face a reality they are unequipped to handle, a reality where they are no longer the center of your world. What many people fail to realize is that for a narcissist, any attention is better than no attention. Whether positive or negative, it doesn't really matter. If you're arguing with them, defending yourself, or even just trying to make sense of their behavior, you are still providing them with a kind of psychological nourishment. This is because the narcissist's identity is externalized. They cannot validate themselves from within. They need a constant stream of affirmation or conflict to maintain the illusion of their superiority. And when you walk away, you starve that system. This is why they often escalate their behavior when they sense you pulling back. They may provoke you with insults, guilt trips, or dramatic gestures because they need to regain your focus. It's not because they care in any real meaningful sense. It's because your attention is their lifeline. And the more you respond, the more you reinforce their belief that they still have power over you. But when you walk away and stay away, you deny them this, you break the feedback loop that keeps their ego inflated, and without that external validation, their carefully constructed facade begins to crack. It's important to understand that this loss of attention is not just a minor inconvenience for them, it's an existential threat. At their core, narcissists are profoundly insecure. Beneath their grandiosity lies a deep, unaddressed sense of worthlessness. They cannot sit alone with themselves because doing so forces them to confront the emptiness they spend their lives trying to avoid. Your attention, whether through admiration or conflict, acts as a buffer against that inner void. When you take it away, they are left alone with the very feelings they've worked so hard to suppress. And here's the critical point. You are not responsible for filling that void. It's not your job to hold their ego together or to protect them from their own insecurities. Yet, this is precisely what they want from you, to keep playing the role of caretaker, validator, or emotional punching bag. But the longer you engage, the more you diminish yourself in the process. Your energy becomes consumed by their endless need, leaving you drained and disconnected from your own sense of purpose. Walking away is an act of reclaiming that energy. It is a declaration that your time, your focus, and your emotional resources are too valuable to be wasted on someone who only seeks to consume them. And here's the fascinating part. When you withdraw your attention, it forces the narcissist to confront their own powerlessness. They may try to deny it. They may lash out to regain control, but the truth becomes undeniable. Without your focus, their illusion of dominance crumbles. Think of it like a mirror. For years, you've been reflecting back to them the image they wanted to see, an image of power, importance, and superiority. But when you walk away, you remove that mirror, they're left with nothing but their own unfiltered reflection. And most narcissists cannot bear to see themselves in that raw, unvarnished state. It is a reflection of their dependence, their emptiness, and the frightening reality that without someone to reflect their false self back to them, they are nothing. This is why silence is so devastating. There is nothing to push against, no emotional reaction to manipulate, no source of fuel to sustain their fragile identity. Silence is a void they cannot fill because it forces them to sit with the very feelings they have spent a lifetime running from. And the more resolute your silence, the more deeply they feel the weight of their own insignificance. But there is a deeper lesson in all of this. Walking away isn't just about breaking the narcissist's power. It's about reclaiming your own. It's about recognizing that your attention is precious, and it should only be given to those who value and respect you. It's about understanding that you do not exist to prop up someone else's ego or to soothe their insecurities. Your life is yours to live, and no one, especially not a narcissist, has the right to occupy your mental and emotional space without your permission. And the most powerful thing, once you reclaim that attention, you become immune to their manipulation. They may try to bait you, to draw you back into their chaotic world, but the spell is broken. You see through the illusion. You realize that their power was never intrinsic. It was always derived from your willingness to give it. And when you stop giving it, they lose the ability to affect you. In the end, the greatest revenge against a narcissist isn't anger or confrontation. It's indifference. It's the quiet, unwavering decision to walk away and never look back. Because when you do, you not only free yourself, you force them to face the one thing they cannot escape, themselves. And there is no greater consequence for a narcissist than that. One of the most liberating truths you can come to understand is that walking away from a narcissist isn't just an act of self-preservation. It's an act of self-respect. When you choose to remove yourself from their manipulation, their emotional games, and their endless appetite for control, you are making a profound statement about your worth. You are saying, in no uncertain terms, I am not a pawn in your game. My life is my own, and I will not waste it being trapped in a dynamic that diminishes me. And while that choice may feel difficult, perhaps even impossible at first, it is the very thing that sets you free. Narcissists thrive on control, but it's not just about managing external circumstances. What they want more than anything is control over you, your thoughts, your emotions, your perception of reality. Their greatest victory is to have you so entangled in their web that you no longer trust yourself. They want you questioning your instincts, doubting your value, and relying on them for validation. But here's the critical insight. Their power only exists as long as you remain engaged. The moment you walk away with clarity and resolve, you strip them of the ability to shape your world. And this isn't just a psychological phenomenon, it's a deeply moral one. There is a moral responsibility to protect the integrity of your own soul. When you continue to engage with someone who seeks to manipulate and devalue you, you are, in a sense, participating in your own destruction. It may not feel that way in the moment, especially if the narcissist has conditioned you to believe that you are the problem. But over time, the erosion of your identity is inevitable. Every compromise you make, every boundary you allow them to violate weakens your sense of self. And if you allow that to continue unchecked, you risk losing yourself entirely. But here is the empowering truth. You have the authority to reclaim your identity. You are not powerless. You are not dependent on anyone else to define your worth. Walking away is the first and most vital step toward restoring the dignity that has been systematically stripped from you. It is a refusal to play by their rules, a refusal to accept a narrative where your value is contingent on their approval. And once you recognize that, their grip on you is broken. What often holds people back from leaving is fear. The fear of retaliation, the fear of being alone, or the fear that perhaps the narcissist was right and they really are as inadequate as they've been made to feel. But fear is a terrible counselor. It keeps you tethered to situations that drain your spirit and prevent your growth. The truth is, the narcissist's opinion of you is not a reflection of who you actually are. It's a projection of their own dysfunction, a way for them to offload their insecurity and maintain a sense of superiority. You are not defined by their accusations or their judgments. You are defined by your actions, your integrity, and your ability to stand firmly in your own truth. And when you walk away, you reclaim not only your identity, but also your future. As long as you stay entangled with a narcissist, your life is confined to a narrow, suffocating space where there is no room for growth. You become trapped in an endless cycle of defending yourself, managing their emotions, and sacrificing your well-being for the illusion of peace. But the moment you leave, new possibilities emerge. You create space for relationships that nourish rather than drain you. You rediscover your passions, your dreams, and your sense of purpose, things the narcissist worked tirelessly to suppress. It's important to recognize that walking away isn't about seeking revenge. It's not about trying to make the narcissist suffer or hoping that they finally see the error of their ways. In truth, most narcissists will never change. Their entire psychological framework is built around avoiding accountability. Waiting for an apology or hoping they will one day recognize your worth is a waste of your precious time. Your freedom cannot be contingent on their recognition or their remorse. It must be rooted in your own decision to value yourself enough to leave. And there is profound strength in that choice. Because when you walk away and refuse to engage, you deliver the one consequence a narcissist cannot tolerate: irrelevance. Nothing is more devastating to someone who thrives on control than realizing they no longer have access to your mind and heart. You cease to be a source of their validation, their amusement, or their emotional dumping ground. You become an autonomous individual, beyond their reach, beyond their influence. But here's the final crucial point. Walking away is not just a one-time action. It's a commitment. It's easy to leave temporarily, only to be drawn back in by their manipulative tactics. True freedom requires that you stay gone. It means maintaining no contact if possible, refusing to engage with their provocations, and most importantly, rejecting the internalized lies they tried to implant in you. You must consistently choose yourself over their chaos. In the end, walking away isn't just a physical departure, it's a profound psychological and spiritual liberation. It is the recognition that you are not here to be anyone's object or plaything. You are here to live fully, authentically, and unapologetically. And the moment you embrace that truth, you become untouchable. The most powerful move you can make against a narcissist isn't to fight them, explain yourself, or seek their validation. It's to walk away with your dignity intact and never look back. Because in doing so, you reclaim the most precious thing they sought to steal: your freedom.